It was mostly exciting, and it was. New video footage of Mick Fleetwood shows hands shaking uncontrollably and a voice cutting off in the middle of a statement. The huge drum player is 78 years old and can barely keep his stick still. The man who drove Fleetwood Mac for 50 years is breaking down. When Christine McVie died in 2022, it broke his heart. The Maui fires took away his way of life. Years of abuse have worn down his body. The saddest part isn't what we can see, though. No one saw coming when he whispered it to a friend last month. Everyone didn't see how fast the end was coming. On June 24, 1947, Mick Fleetwood was born in Redruth, Cornwall. At the time, England was still getting back on its feet after the war. Food and clothes had to be shared out. And most families lived with less than that. His family was no different. The house was simple and quiet because his father was in the Royal Air Force and didn't make much money. It was built around discipline and imagination rather than comfort. Mick was the second of 3 kids, and his parents made time for singing even though money was tight. On the radio, jazz played in the background, and in their home, the beat was set by the monotony of military life. In those early days, when there were ration books and careful spending, he learned to be tough in a way that stuck with him for life. It also taught him how to work hard, which became the foundation of everything he did in music afterward. The family moved to Wales when he was 4 years old because his father was sent there by the RAF. That was when everything changed around him. Not just the towns or the scenery, but also the sounds in his bedroom. Mick played the Egyptian music records that his dad brought home over and over again. Those beats were alive. When he was 6, he played them on pots and pans, and soon he was putting together little drum sets out of boxes. He learned to hear music differently because of those early beats. That music from far away was already living in his head long before Fleetwood Mac was even a thing. The family went even farther when Mick was 10 years old. When they got to Cairo, Egypt, he heard music coming from markets, bars, and the dirty streets. He heard Arabic drummers at music events and big band jazz in dark, small rooms. He took in every sound as if it were there just waiting for him. He saw street bands play with a freedom he had never seen before. When he got home, he tried to copy their moves. By the time Mick's family moved back to London in 1957, he was learning beats that were different from what other British kids were learning. He felt different right away, and that soon turned into his strength. He talked his parents into getting him his first real drum kit when he was 13. It was small and crammed into a London apartment, but it was his. He worked out every chance he had. People in the neighborhood grumbled through the thin walls, but Mick didn't stop. It hurts his hands. The rooms were shaking. He wouldn't stop, and sometimes the noise filled the whole building. His parents slowly started to help him when they learned this wasn't a short-term phase. He changed because of those long hours. They helped him make the thick, steady groove that made him famous. After he turned 13, he began sneaking into jazz clubs in Soho, like the Marquee and the Flamingo. He used them as secret schools. I watched drummers play without following any rules. Mick looked at Philly Joe Jones quietly from the back of the room. Jones was one of his heroes. In 1957, early forms of bands like the Rolling Stones and the Yardbirds played at the Marquee, and Mick just stood there and took it all in. He learned that groove was more important than being perfect and that gut feelings could be stronger than skill. He would remember that thought. Always. In 1963, everything changed. Was 16 and thought school was making him move less quickly. He quit and went to London full-time. He tried to get in with bands, but his height made him look funny behind the drums, and he had trouble timing. For both of these reasons, one group even turned him down. So he could pay for drum lessons, he did odd jobs like hotel porter shifts. He trained in his sister's basement and lived with her, telling himself over and over that he could get better. Those months were tough. He didn't want to give up, though. The Chesters were his first semi-professional group, which he finally joined in 1964. They played versions of R&B songs in rough North London pubs where the floors stuck to your shoes and the pay wasn't even enough to pay for dinner. Everyone was dwarfed by his height of 6 feet, 6 inches, which made his presence memorable. But his timing didn't always match up with the musicians, and fights broke out on stage. On some nights, things got so bad that they almost fought in front of everyone. It was loud and messy, but Mick learned how to deal with stress from it. It also taught him that making songs takes more than just passion. In 1965, a fight at a show made him go too far. He broke his drum set. It was a bad time, but something better came after it. He got a used Ludwig set with a big bass drum and a big sound with money his sister gave him. He started looking for gigs in places like Cluck's Click, where young artists were fighting for any chance to be heard. That new drum kit made him feel better about himself and got the attention of players who already knew what they were doing. It felt like a new start. In 1966, he took part in the Bow Street riot for a short time. Their trip through Scotland was in an old van that broke down in the middle of nowhere, leaving them without money or food. Mick slept in cold settings and lived off of scraps. He learned the hard way what it's really like to be on the road. Those weeks were hard, but they made him stronger. Every problem he faced made him stronger. He got a small part in John Mayall's Bluesbreakers later that same year. This was a band that taught some of the best musicians in Britain. He played music with Peter Green in dirty basements and learned blues shuffles and how to find the right mix between power and restraint. But Mayall thought he was too crazy and fired him. It hurt, but the lessons stayed with me. In July 1967, things really began to change. Green and Mick Green quit the Bluesbreakers and made Fleetwood Mac. On August 13, they had their first show. Heavy rain nearly broke their gear at the Windsor Jazz and Blues Festival, but they played anyway, and the organizers praised their toughness. They got a record deal because of that night. Within weeks, they got John McVie to join by giving him equal songwriting credit, which wasn't common at the time. People were drawn to the band's raw blues sound right away. Bob Brunning had to step down when McVie joined the band in September 1967. The group quickly put out Black Magic Woman. By the beginning of 1968, it had broken into the UK charts, showing that they had real business promise. It went to number 4 on the UK Records chart in February 1968 and stayed there for 37 weeks. As a signature, Mick's huge bass drum was also a nightmare to move around, especially when they tried to fit it into small cars. The sound it made, though, made the work worth it. At last, Albatross showed up in November 1968. It felt soft. Dreamy and different from anything else they had done, they used timpani mallets to make the cymbals sound like they were flying. Every week, 60,000 records of the song were sold, and in January 1969, it was number 1. But success led to trouble. Mick learned how easy it was for the music business to betray its own artists when he got into a fight with his boss Clifford Davis over loyalty. Even so, Albatross was their only number 1 hit in the UK, and it had an impact on bands like the Beatles. The stage wasn't always quiet, though. Jeremy Spencer, who played slide guitar for them, often made things crazy at live shows. He took off his clothes and acted crazy. One time, he walked on stage with something stuffed in his pants that almost got them kicked off. Clubs, even the well-known Marquee Club, wouldn't book them. And while they were on tour in Europe in 1969, drug use and emotional problems kept getting worse. Spencer was seen going backstage for hours, and it was hard for the group to stay together. Their early identity was shaped by the fact that they were both smart and unstable. It happened quickly for Peter Green's mind to start to slip in May 1970. He wrote Black Magic Woman and Oh Well, and people thought they could not hurt him. But his heavy LSD use caught up with him in Munich. That night, something changed inside him. He began to say that it was wrong to make money by making music. It didn't take long for him to start walking around in long robes and talking about giving away everything. The band saw him change very quickly. Clifford Davis, their boss, said that both Green and Danny Kirwan looked scared. In a way that went beyond being tired. After that there was the concert in Munich. Green left and didn't come back. Soon after, he went to a mental health center to get help. Even though it hurt, Mick Fleetwood fired his best friend because he knew he had to make a tough choice. The band moved on, but the change was caused by the loss. The blues they were built on started to crack, and the sound slowly changed direction. Mick. For years, they felt guilty. It broke my heart just as much when Danny Kirwan fell. When he joined in 1968, he was a young musician who could help Peter Green's force. But by 1972, he would drink too much. He was always feeling tense. It all went off one night in Chicago. Behind the scenes, he got into a fight with Bob Welch over tuning his guitar, wouldn't go on, smashed Welch's guitar, and then yelled at the band. "Hi, Mick Fleetwood." They had no choice. Mick walked out during the show and fired him in the middle of the tour. A lot of people in the room were shocked. Seeing someone get fired in real time was pretty rare. After that, Kirwan dropped out of the public eye and spent years wandering around without a place to call home. It was another sad turn in the story of Fleetwood Mac. In 1971, Bob Weston joined the band to replace Kirwan, but he also ran into trouble. Mick Fleetwood found out that Weston was sleeping with his wife Jenny Boyd while the band was on tour in Los Angeles in 1973. It hurt him a lot to be made fun of. Mick got angry with him and fired him right away. The tour ended abruptly after only 2 weeks, with 26 more shows still to be played. Weston had been on Penguin and Mystery to me, but the affair was what made his time stand out. The band became even less stable, but strangely, this chaos made room for something new. These broken times set the stage for the future pairing of Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. Having trouble with money led to an even stranger part. Clifford Davis, the band's boss, agreed that they should still go on tour in 1973, even though the Real members needed a break. He paid a group called Legs to make a fake Fleetwood Mac and sent them all over the United States. Fans didn't know that the people on stage weren't really the band. When Mick and the others found out, they sued each other. Davis said that he owned the work and the name. Their savings were wiped out by the cases. To keep recording, they had to sell some gear. Because of this mess, Mick finally had to fire Davis and take charge. Over time, Mick took over as leader. Because nobody else could keep the ship steady. When Christine McVie joined full-time in 1970, her presence became very important. They got through a rough time with her steady hand and calm voice. But she had times when she lost it. Her marriage to John McVie was falling apart because he drank too much. And she almost left in 1972. She told him she couldn't take it any longer. Mick Fleetwood stepped in and set up private talks to keep her from going. The band didn't lose one of its most important parts because of those talks. Christine stayed and kept working. Her songs kept people warm during the storm. Mick Fleetwood pushed the band to move to Los Angeles in 1974. The fight with Davis and the high taxes in the UK made life almost unbearable. They tried to start over when they signed with Repeat Records, but trouble followed them across the ocean. Mick got more and more hooked on drugs, spending all of his money at a crazy fast rate. Some sources say that during his most important years, he spent about $60 million on drugs. It got dark in Hollywood clubs at night, and the band was crammed into a small house in Laurel Canyon. They tried to record Heroes Are Hard to Find, but sessions often went off the rails because Mick was still high and deals were made in the middle of the night. In November 1974, Bob Welch finally quit because he felt like it was too much. The band didn't have a guitarist or a male singer after Welch left. It felt like everything was broken, but this crack was where new light would come in. In Sausalito on December 31, 1974, heard a demo. When Neil Olson, the producer, played a Buckingham Nicks song, Mick felt something spark. The guitar playing of Lindsey Buckingham and the singing of Stevie Nicks struck him right away. He asked them to come in. Other people were not sure at first, but Mick kept pushing until everyone agreed. Buckingham told Stevie that he had to join too. It was either all or nothing. The pair had joined for real by the end of December. Mick made the most important choice of his life. It was the start of a new era for Fleetwood Mac. Rhiannon was first worked on in 1975, and the whole project felt charged. Mick thought back to his childhood in Ghana, where his father had been in the British Army. He shaped the drums with those beats. Nix brought in lyrics about a Welsh witch, and she moved around the room in her dreamy way. It was Lindsey Buckingham's desire for tight order that went against Stevie's more free style. There were fights all night long. Stevie said she was done more than once. Mick turned his backyard into a drum circle to calm everyone down. The group would get together, play beats, and let go of their stress. The hypnotic heartbeat of the song came from those small groups. During this time, Over My Head came out and got to number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100. In 1976. Even though it seemed like a big step forward, Mick Fleetwood's earnings were actually getting worse. UK tax bills from the past came back to light. For the money to pay for tour buses and bills, he sold personal things like his old drums. In the end, he revealed that he had gone bankrupt too many times to count. Even though he was great on stage, success had its traps for him. Between 1975 and 1976, the band went on a huge tour of the US. There were 150 shows, and I was tired and traveling a lot. Mick worked out too hard for his body to handle. During a show in Dallas in 1976, his lung gave out. Even though doctors told him to stop, he went back on stage naked. Fans saw him play even though he was hurt, and the way he looked made the moment memorable. He did that to show how much he cared about the band. During the Rumors sessions in 1976, the band's emotional heart broke again. Even though Mick Fleetwood was married to Jenny Boyd, he started seeing Stevie Nicks behind her back. They first met on the Australian tour, after a night of heavy drinking. They kept it secret because they knew it would ruin everything. After a while, Stevie said she fell in love with Mick, and her songs showed it. Drum takes that were missed. There were whispered fights in the hallways, and the long nights made making the record harder. When Stevie learned that Mick had started seeing her best friend Sarah, it hurt a lot and made the sessions even more tense than they were before. Things were also going badly between John and Christine McVie. They were married for 8 years before they split up while they were recording reports. They only talked about music at work. Christine started going out with the band's lighting director, and John drank too much to deal with his feelings. Mick tried to help again, moving them from room to help them stay on task. The emotional damage spread through the whole company. Christine told John that she knew she could no longer make him happy. At the same time, Jenny left Mick for Bob Weston, ending their marriage. Mick carried this hurt inside him without showing it. Even though they were in a lot of pain, they kept making songs. Every day during the Rumors time was filled with drugs. There are rumors that the band spent about $180,000 on drugs. They lined up on studio consoles during the sessions, treating the right like a strange way to get to know each other. Producer Ken Kylett often had to kick him out because he got so high. After a while, Stevie Nicks' doctor told her that keeping going at this rate could kill her. The confusion made the music stronger in some way, giving stories their raw power, but it cost a lot. People could hear the anger in Lindsey Buckingham's words when Go Your Own Way came out in January 1977. The shoot for the music video made things very tense. Buckingham sang the line, "All you want to do is pack up and shack up." And Stevie lost it. She pushed him because she was so mad at what she thought were false charges. To save the shoot, Mick had to step in and separate them. It was a powerful moment in the movie that made everyone aware of how close the band was to breaking up. More than 40 million copies had been sold by 1977. It seemed like Mick Fleetwood became a millionaire overnight. He bought a big house in Hawaii and was happy for a short time until the IRS showed up. He was caught up in old tax problems in the UK. And all of a sudden he had to quickly sell his assets. It got even worse when Mick's accountant fled after buying a yacht with $500,000 of Mick's earnings. Mick never even saw the yacht. The accountant ran away to the Bahamas with even more money. By 1982, Mick had to face the fact that his money had been wasted on drugs, fame, and trusting people without checking them out. Mick Fleetwood thought back to 1977 as the year when everything went off the rails. The band was bigger and better than ever, and the Whispers tour was making almost $25 million. But his life was going in a direction he didn't want it to go. He tried heroin on the East Coast leg of the tour, which was something he had never done before. The trouble came quickly. He killed himself in his Boston hotel room one night, right before a show. He passed out. The man stopped breathing. His friends on the road found him lying on the floor and had to do CPR while the clock kept running down to showtime. No one in the crowd knew that they pulled him back from the edge. He didn't tell the band anything. He later said that he was scared that telling the truth would break up the group's shaky peace. That was the start of a long addiction that cost him a lot of money and almost killed him. He kept going anyway. Warner Brothers didn't want to pay for the really weird new record he and the band wanted to make. He took his wallet out of his pocket. He used $800,000 of his own money to make Tusk, an album with wild drums and a lot of creative spark. While there were rumors about the record, it only sold 4 million copies when it came out. This was a long way short of their goal. All of a sudden, he was in charge of a $300,000 loss. People around him were shocked. Even though the freedom that came with making it almost put him out of business, he still said it was his favorite record. The rains didn't stop. In 1981, Stevie Nicks worked on her record Belladonna, but she and Mick fought a lot during the Mirage sessions. She was late, and then she was gone. She would sometimes take so much cocaine that she passed out in the studio. They told her that her body could fail at any time and that she might even bleed in the brain. Things got tense. The band stopped. He ran away to Ireland to get away from the negative situation that was building up around him. He said later that it might have been the worst time for the band. Then there was dancing at night. There had been too many fights, especially with Stevie, for Lindsey Buckingham to stay with Mark. It was 1987. Mick found out and flew straight to Aspen, where Lindsey lives on leave. They talked and played music for 3 days, trying to put something back together. It cost him a lot to keep Lindsey. There was more stress. Lindsey's health got worse. When the record was over, Lindsey finally left. The world wasn't nicer outside the studio. The band's bus crashed in Ohio in 1982 while they were on tour with Mirage. Mick hurt his wrist. Dr. S told him not to play the drums, but he refused. He played with one hand that night in Cleveland. People in the crowd never forgot about it. Fans shared bootlegs with each other. It sounded rough, honest, and brave, like the band was fighting for its own life. Mick was also trying to make something new for himself at the same time. In 1981, he went to Accra, Ghana, with almost 10 tons of gear to record The Visitor. He shared a hotel room with other people. They ate food from the area, played music with Ghanaian bands, and brought in singers like George Harrison and Peter Green. His charge card was turned off. When the song was done, RCA didn't give it much attention. It sold about 150,000 copies in the US and got to number 43 on the Billboard list. The sound was praised. Things got worse with the money. He still said it was a love letter to African music. After that came Behind the Mask. In 1990, another record that would not be broken. By then, Lindsey had quit, and new people had come in to take her place. Fans didn't like the sound of the experimental synth drums that were pushed for. Just over 500,000 copies were sold, which is a big drop from the band's earlier fame. Mick had to take out a loan on his house in Los Angeles to pay for the losses. It hurt a lot. That tour was the last for that form of the band because Stevie Nicks quit soon after. Christine McVie also took a break for a while, but the world kept pulling them back together. The original group got back together for Bill Clinton's inauguration gala on January 19, 1993. A crowd watched them play Don't Stop, which brought in more than $1 million. Well-known people like Barbra Streisand, Elton John, and Michael Jackson came to see them play. Stevie was still getting better after surgery on her throat, and Mick kept going through hard practices. Old feelings came back. Old tales came back. But for a short time, the band felt whole. 10 years later, in 2003, Lindsey Buckingham came back for Say You Will. Mick's drum solos were one of the best parts of the show. Every night, fans stood up. That year, the tour made almost $69.2 million, which made it one of the biggest in the country. But the pressure never went away. 2004, Mick and Lindsay got into a fight backstage in Atlanta. Screams and then fists. Again, the cracks in the music were seen, but the tour went on because that's what Fleetwood Mac always did. But Mick tried writing just one book in 1990. He had been through enough chaos to fill boxes of books. 10,000 copies of his book were sold. And shocked almost everyone. It was written in parts in the newspapers. It was said that Peter Green had a mental breakdown and that voices were following him around. There were also reports that Green had made a dark deal a long time ago. A few fans were shocked. The band felt open. Still, everyone had to read the book. The last few years were worse. Mick fell on stage in Dublin in June 2014 while on the On With The Show tour. He was wearing platform shoes. His knee got hurt. He had to take drugs again.